Now, I'm a big fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's a great actor, so of course I was excited to see Don John, his directorial debut. In the film, the protagonist, Don John, is addicted to pornography. He prefers it to real sex. He's a very particular kind of man in terms of the few things that he likes, of course, and how his addiction to pornography affects all of the other aspects of his life, including relationships and whatnot. And something I really admired about the film is that it wasn't trying to hold back on anything. And I have to say that the film really surprised me in more ways than one. I thought it was an extremely realistic depiction of the story that he was trying to tell. Sure, it was extremely brave in its approach, but I have to say that they really gave some interesting social commentary throughout the film about the way that people are starting to see the world in our generation and the generations to come. And one thing that really stood out to me, and it felt intentional after a point, was immediately after certain pornographic videos are watched by the character Don John, he goes to church and he repents, and how it's a continuous cycle and how these two extremely contrasting scenes are continuously played one after the other. And it's through a lot of things like this that Joseph Gordon-Levitt kind of paints a picture of what we've become and how relationships have sort of transcended due to things like, one, social media, of course, but also pornography, and how the world has changed because of these kind of creations. And that is, of course, something I really admired, the kind of real versus media depiction of a lot of things that were thrown in throughout the film, and of course how people think that they can just sort of repent and it's all done kind of a thing. I thought those couple of dilemmas thrown around here and there were extremely interesting and extremely thought-provoking. The film is extremely thought-provoking, and that is, of course, credit to the writing. But you can only go on this journey if you have a interesting, likable protagonist. Up to a certain point, of course, Don John, portrayed extremely well by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's pulled off another great performance of his. And you can definitely see in this film the directorial talent that he possesses. Sure, in some shots it's simply directed, I'd say. The writing talent that he displays, the acting talent that he displays, he's really stepped it up, and you can also see certain bits of inspiration that he's taken from films such as 500 Days of Summer and even Looper from the narrative perspective. Scarlett Johansson and Julianne Moore ultimately end up playing the two girls that are in Don John's life the most, apart from those in his family, of course, and Don John plays between these two extremely contrasted characters, living extremely different lives of extremely different ages. It kind of shows a dilemma because Don John is, at the end of the day, a character trying to find himself in this strange world that we live in, or at least that's what Joseph Gordon-Levitt is trying to say. Ultimately, it's a film that sticks with you. Much like Spring Breakers, it is meant to come out in today's day and age to kind of give a message of how certain things have changed the way we see the world and how those things have transcended the life that we live in. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, and how it's positively and negatively affecting the world that we live in. I was absolutely surprised by Don John. It really took me by surprise. I had no idea what I was going into, and I thought it was going to be your average rom-com kind of film, but when I really got down to understanding what the film was saying, I really enjoyed it a lot more. Some good performances, a certainly well-written film, a well-directed film, and I must say a very, very well-edited film. Although there are a few moments here and there that I felt were not entirely necessary. The character of the mother, for example, she is your stereotypical mother. There's a lot of stereotypes thrown around throughout the film, which is a bit unfortunate, actually, because it doesn't serve the film that well. Nonetheless, I would recommend that you watch Don John, and I'm going to give Don John a double yes.